Hi there, I'm Stuart Jean Bramhall, and I'm here to introduce my new young adult novel, A Rebel Comes of Age. The book is a sequel to The Battle for Tomorrow, which I published in 2011. In the first book, 16-year-old Angela Jones is arrested and sent to juvenile hall for participating in a militant protest at the U.S. Capitol. In this sequel, she's a year older, and she and 4 other homeless teenagers occupy a vacant commercial building owned by Bank of America. Over the next 5 months, they transform it into a teen homeless shelter, meanwhile dealing with all the typical problems of inner-city youth, including raging hormones, alcohol and drugs, racial tensions, and pregnancy. When the bank obtains a court order evicting them, the game turns deadly serious. The other residents decide to use automatic weapons against the police SWAT team that comes to evict them. Ange, in turn, faces a major personal crisis as she's forced to confront her attitudes towards guns and violence. I'm going to read an excerpt from the prologue at the very beginning of the book. A Rebel Comes of Age. Ange's skin crawled as Philip placed the M16 in her arms. The gun was cold and unnaturally smooth. It smelt like burnt rubber. Then he left her alone with PJ, a tall, thin 40-something, with wavy, shoulder-length black hair and a long, unkempt beard. The small, unheated barn, with its dirt floor, was virtually empty, except for a large utility table covered in scratches and stains. PJ had a laptop plugged into a socket that hung from the ceiling on a cord. He played her a video of a young woman disassembling an M16A2. The woman, who was white, had dark brown hair and wore a plain white t-shirt. 2 men in uniform shirts stood on either side timing her. She looked up at them triumphantly as she set the last part on the table. PJ was dressed in faded overalls, fastened over a bulky gray cardigan and 2 sweatshirts. Ange could see them at the collar line, 1 gray and 1 dark blue. "You see that?" He dragged out his vowels with a sing-song intonation. Lacey said he was from Appalachia. 2 minutes, 10 seconds. He clicked replay, and they watched the video again. Then he closed the laptop, shoved it aside, and replaced it with a glossy black and white poster depicting the M16 parts in the order they were to be removed. "Okay, you do it now." Copying the woman in the video, Ange turned the weapon over to find the safety. Then, removing the magazine to check the chamber, she removed the bolt carrier group. Laying the receiver and charging handle on the table, she broke the BCG down by removing the bolt-retaining cotter pin, bolt, and firing pin. "Well done. Now reassemble it." She repeated the entire process 3 times. Then Philip returned with a pair of ear protectors and safety glasses and took her to the firing area. A mixed-race Haitian, he was slightly taller than PJ. He wore his hair in long dreadlocks, and Ange guessed he was somewhere in his early 40s. Philip's face was long and narrow, with deeply set eyes, a large hooked nose, thin lips, a sparse, untrimmed beard, and permanent creases on his forehead and around his eyes. Like many of Ange's activist friends, he dressed in an assortment of free and second-hand clothes Today he was wearing dark blue track pants, a mangy leather jacket that looked like it had been through the washing machine, and a woolen maroon cap that covered his forehead and ears. Ange had hoped that PJ would take her for target practice. She didn't like or trust Philip. He didn't seem to like teenagers very much. His desire to work with them puzzled her. She strongly sensed he had some ulterior agenda that had nothing to do with empowering the homeless youth of Bedford-Stuyvesant. She was also convinced it was his idea, not Fabio's, that they use weapons to defend themselves against the impending eviction. Occupy homes, like Occupy Wall Street and other left-leaning movements, had always opted for nonviolent methods in confronting the police. Although Bank of America had yet to acknowledge the teenagers had taken over the abandoned credit union building, everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the bank obtained an eviction order. Recruiting and training teenagers to shoot automatic weapons wasn't normal, no matter how radical you were. Lacey said that military-style assault rifles were illegal in New York State, that PJ most likely belonged to some right-wing militia. She gave no clue, and Ange didn't ask how she knew these things. Ange assumed the ex-boyfriend who taught Lacey to shoot was the source of the information. Lacey and Geneva were already outside in the firing area. They lay side by side, aiming at multicolored concentric circles attached to straw bales. Philip directed Ange to lie down next to them. Gritting her teeth, Ange did as she was told, determined to block out the churning nausea in her gut with sheer force of will. The sooner she learned to do this, the sooner she could end the firearms lessons and this whole sordid chapter of her life.